Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier. Joined as always, my co-host Nick Filato. One thing I'm focused on today, Nick, is I need a haircut, man. I never find time during the work week to get a haircut, and then I'm busy on the weekends. And that's what I'm focusing on because the Giants don't give us much to focus on. We discussed briefly before starting to record this live, Nick, that we don't know what to talk about. That's a first for us. I don't know. I've never been speechless, as some people tell me. I love to hear the sound of my own voice. But, as far as this team goes, we don't really know what to talk about right now. I can talk to you about the second week in a row, Nick, where a fan, maybe the same fan, flew a plane across the stadium before the game, telling Mr. Mara, this is going to continue. I'm going to keep embarrassing you week after week until you do something. And what he asked for, or she asked for, was to fire everybody. I don't know what that means entirely. Who gets fired? Does that mean John Mara? I doubt it, Nick. What I also saw was an overhead shot right before halftime after the Ravens scored that showed all three levels of one side of the stadium. I have never seen a stadium that empty before half in my life, that Giants stadium specifically. No one came to this game. No one came to sit out in this weather and watch this game. This was an embarrassment from that standpoint. The Giants defense, hard-fought game last week. Well, now they faced an actual talented offense. They got absolutely embarrassed in this game as well. Didn't really put up a fight at all. So that, whatever you want to call it, is gone. They got Neighbors a touchdown, thank God, for the first time since week 3. Pay him off for what he's done. And he's open all the time, man. He looks good out there. He makes crazy catches and he creates separation. Pat Traina, the last thing I'll say before turning it over to you, because I know you work with Pat, tweeted at one point, I saw this as I was perusing through Twitter. Wow. She goes, wow, I think the last few passes I've watched of Tim Doyle, this might be the first time I saw Giants quarterback throw with anticipation all season. She goes, this is something the Giants quarterbacks haven't been giving the team. Like, anticipation. This is not something we should be like, oh my God, we did it. We threw with anticipation. It's week 15. This is the type of thing you need every week. You don't win games if you don't throw with anticipation. There's no offense that works without anticipation. There's no team that wins playoffs or Super Bowls without anticipation. So it's just an embarrassingly low bar that we're at and that we're set. And it's not on her, but it's just so embarrassing to hear that and to read that. Like, wow, this quarterback's giving the Giants something they haven't had all year, some anticipatory throws. Like, Jesus effing Christ, because there's no reason that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll should have evaluated Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, and whoever Drew Lock, and said, these guys throw with anticipation at any level, or we can get them to, because they couldn't and they can't, and no one will be able to, and no one can on a consistent basis. So this is the product you get. And it's crazy, man.
I felt like Tim Boyle, dare I say, was much better than Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito.
Yes.
And I did see him throw with anticipation. The play up the sidelines on the cover 2 hole shot, that was an anticipatory throw where Tim Boyle rolled the dice a little bit and said, I have a route who's going to draw that flat defender down. Both the safeties split. It's cover 2. Let me rip it in there. And he threw it with velocity. There were a few throws by Tim Boyle. And I'm not saying you're like, oh, Tim Boyle, guys. I mean, what are we going to talk about, really, ladies and gentlemen? The Giants suck. We've been talking about how much the Giants suck for months now. We don't want to be redundant. We have kicked this dead horse so much at this point, Dan. But Tim Boyle went in there and he threw with some anticipation. It's like, Tim Boyle, somebody who's been cast aside, somebody who's been on how many rosters at this point, was able to come in when the team was completely down. So it wasn't like he had a shot. He didn't have first team reps, and he was able to make some throws that we don't see on a consistent basis. It's to the point where I'm like, what the hell do the Giants have to lose? Why don't we just start this guy next week?
I mean, they probably will. Who cares? But yeah, they probably will.
I know they probably will. And it's just, it might actually be something for Malik Neighbors. He actually might come away with a better stat line. And he came away with that touchdown, and that was good tracking by him. And I thought at first it might not even been a touchdown because the ball did hit the ground, but I guess he held on to it close to his torso enough for it to be ruled.
I kind of feel like since it was like 35-7, Nick, they're kind of just
like a pity touchdown.
Let's just let this go. In the respect of time, everyone's dying. Let's just not review this right now.
Yeah, no, it was a pity touchdown. No, but to be honest, this is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Lamar Jackson what was he? What was it? 5 touchdowns or
I don't think he
whatever.
missed the bat. I think he was like 21 to 24, something like that.
It was something ridiculous like that. They were 7 of 8 on third down. The Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson out there, and then like
easily average double-digit yards, I assume, per attempt, right? There's no way
like
he's
11.
bombing it downfield.
I think it was like 11. I don't have the stats in front of me. I can pull them up, but it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. The Giants are out there with the triage unit, ladies and gentlemen. There is nobody really healthy on that defense, and it shows, right? And even the starters, though, they're out of place. You have Rashad Bateman looking like the player we all thought he could be in the NFL.
Did we even hear from Kayvon?
I didn't hear from Kayvon.
No, whole game without hearing from Kayvon. I mean,
but it's tough. It's tough for Kayvon to do anything. It's not like the Giants are forcing these 3rd and 9 situations. They're getting 6, 7, 8 yards of play, whether it be Justice Hill. Derrick Henry was the one thing where the Giants were able to bottle him up a little bit because they were running out those 5-man fronts. And when they were in nickel, they would really focus on stopping Derrick Henry. But he got going in the second half. What did Derrick Henry finish with in this game? Derrick Henry finished with 67 rushing yards. I thought it was going to be a lot worse, but it doesn't matter because the Giants couldn't stop Lamar. And Lamar finished with like 65 rushing yards, 290 yards, 5 touchdowns, 21 of 25, just doing whatever the hell he wanted against this defense.
I feel like the Giants used the same strategy as they did last week against the Carr Saints. Like as far as like rotating down and overcommitting to the run. And it's just like, all right, well, if you're just going to leave the deep half open for Lamar, he's just going to continuously torch you in the D. There's guys wide open.
Most of the big plays, and I haven't seen the all 22 hours. Yeah. Most of the big plays, it was cover 4. It was the quarters. It was, we're going to have our safeties take these inside receivers. And every time the inside receivers just ran a corner route or a poco route, which is basically a corner route.
Belton's not a part of this future, sadly.
Well, Dane Belton and Jason Pinnock was also
you can just put out there. Jason Pinnock, like this is just
the Dane Belton thing too. He actually had like a good first quarter, and then the second quarter, and then the third quarter. It was like, oh geez, just went downhill. Yeah, he's more than likely not. I thought Micah McFadden was running around like crazy in this game, making tackles, and it just seems like he's one of the only competent players out there. Him and Adoree Jackson, which is funny because we're like,
O-line wasn't horrific at all times. I guess you could say, right?
Who's that?
The O-line wasn't horrific at all times. There were some moments for Boyle. I mean, some of those sacks were just DeVito being DeVito and taking dumb sacks. Like, it's an embarrassment that they ever passed the idea of him being a QB2 of the future for this freaking team because he lucked into 3 wins, 2 of which just had 6 turnovers or whatever.
Everyone knows how you and I, we said it over the last like 2 weeks now, 2 or 3, actually probably like 4. Like Brian Daboll, we're basically out on this guy. But there were plays in the first quarter though, where Brian Daboll designed it's like 3rd and 6. He's like, hey, you had that slant wide open. Tommy DeVito throws it like 3 yards over the head of Tyrone Tracy Jr. on a well-designed play. And it's plays like that like it does piss me off because I'm like, Brian Daboll can't really do all that much when your quarterback is so damn incompetent. That falls on the lap of the general manager because you didn't bring anybody in to challenge Daniel Jones. But this is also something we've talked about for months at this point. It's frustrating. And we have 3 more games of this? 3 more games of watching this shit product before we could turn the page to probably the first overall pick in the draft.
Yeah. I tell you one thing. If the Eagles are clinched for that week 18 game, I'll tell everybody right now, and I don't care. I will not be rooting for the Giants to win that game. And I don't give a F what anyone thinks about my fandom with regards to that. So I hope they find a way to lose that game. They better not win that week 18 game with Boyle or whatever, because Daboll's going to do anything in his power to win. He's taking timeouts today, down 21 points with 4 minutes left in the game. Like, he really needs to try to win these games. He thinks. But I don't think that's even going to save him, dude, because it's over. Like, they don't play. This team is done. It looks like they're done with Daboll. They're done in general. They're not like, here's the thing, Nick, like you could just look at this like, whatever, we'll roll to 215. We got a lot of injuries. The quarterback got screwed up situation. Whatever. You can't really do anything with these quarterbacks. Let's see what happens next year when these guys get a quarterback. Or you could look at it like they're not even like remotely competitive or anywhere close. Part of this is because of the depth issues that were brought on by this GM, and you could be like, well, they're done. Like, they're just done. Like, you can't just do this week after week and trot out like the most uncompetitive product imaginable across the NFL. The Jags are competing to win games, Nick. They're at the bottom of the NFL. The Raiders, who are competing with the Giants for the first pick, they're competing to win games week after week. They were competitive for the first half of that Tampa game. I watched and rooting for them. They almost beat the Chiefs the week before. This is like the only team left, I think, the Giants probably, that has no chance week after week. 18-point favorites or whatever. Like, they're literally the worst team in the NFL by far, which they never were under Shermer. They never were under all these other coaches who got fired. So I just think it's over for these
Yeah,
guys.
no, I agree. How could you argue? I mean, there are these little arguments, and I think we talk about them as well. But they're 0-8 right now
Yeah.
at home. 0-8. They're on a 9-game losing streak. A 9-game
You're not
losing
gonna win a
streak.
game at home. And
And
has any team ever done that?
I mean, I'm sure probably, but like if you go back far
We've
enough, but
talked about all this stuff. That's the saddest part. There's like
I,
nothing to talk about with this team.
yeah, here's a stat from Walter. It's at WBG84. He pulled it up. For the first time in franchise history, the Giants lost a home game where their opponent committed 12 plus penalties, scored 35 plus points, and won by 21 plus points. The Ravens were what? They opened as 14-point favorites and they finished at 16.5-point favorites. They covered that easily. 35-14 was the final score of this contest. And when they committed all those penalties, that was the one touchdown drive during a somewhat neutral game script. Remember, they drove down the field, and it was a illegal hands to the face against Jermaine Illuminor. It was a roughing the passer, and it was a pass interference on Malik Neighbors. And I think there was another penalty as well, which got the Giants down to the 1-yard line. And the other time the Giants got down to the 1-yard line or close to, I think this was towards the end of the game. They didn't even like run the football, did they? They just like threw 3 straight passes with Tim Boyle. And it's just like, I mean, at this point, you have Daboll calling timeouts, like you brought up a little bit earlier. It's just, you're down what 21 or whatever the hell it is. I feel bad for Daboll though. Like, what is he going to say? Like right now, he's probably talking to the media. Like, what the hell does this guy say? But he's just got to rely on those same phrases that he's been using for so long. Oh, we're going to get to the tape and we're going to find out what's wrong. And we had a good week of practice. It's just like at this point, man, like nobody wants to hear this.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned this. I don't remember if you mentioned this. You mentioned a bunch of stats, but this is their 9th straight loss, which tied for the franchise record. I thought it was tied for a franchise record. It's crazy. Bob Papa said that the last time they lost all their games, they actually have done this before where they've lost all their home games in a year, but it was 50 years ago, their 50th season, which is crazy that it could be the 50th and 100th season where they lose all their home games for this team. But, there's just nothing. There's literally just nothing. There was a shot at the end of the game of 2 Giants fans sitting. I've never seen this before. With the whole section's gone. It's just them and nobody else in the seats. The entire section is gone. I assume that would be in the 3rd tier, though there didn't look to be that many people in the 1st tier. There's just absolutely nothing going on with this team right now from a positive standpoint.
What'd you say? They're
a lifeless team, which is crazy. They didn't feel that far off before the injuries at the beginning of the year, the first 5 games, but maybe they were and we didn't know it, or maybe, this is what happens when you don't account for depth, which is going to happen in any season, right? Good or bad, they're going to have some depth, which they don't have because they've missed on so many picks. And you mentioned good job mentioning this, throughout. Like, they had to pour all these assets and resources in free agency to fix the O-line, or at least getting it prep passable, because they didn't draft it well and they didn't develop it well. And that's just in one area where their depth is just not where it needs to be.
With each loss too, guys, it just weighs. It's another burden on John Mara. It's another burden on this ownership. Like a win could at least maybe not at this point, salvage something if they won one of these last 3 games, but it's 7 in a row, 8 in a row, 9 in a row. It's probably going to be 10 in a row. No games won at home. The Giants threw their first touchdown pass in garbage time. They threw their first touchdown pass since what? The Washington game? I think it was like week 9.
Whatever that was. Yeah, week 9.
Where Daniel Jones was still starting, the starting quarterback before the bye week. That's how bad this team is right now. How do you come back from it? We've been talking about this with Daboll for about a month now, right? How do you come back from it? I'm looking at Schoen now too, and it's like, dude, this is just weighing down on ownership, and ownership may just want to be like, all right, I'm ripping this Band-Aid off. I'm sorry, I can't do anything else. Like, this is not the answer. And I don't know if that's the best way to run an organization, but at this point, dude, like, this is dire for this general manager and this head coach, how bad and just how embarrassing they are. It's not like they're just losing, Dan. They're getting embarrassed at home. The only fans left in basically every home game over the last 2 or 3 months, basically since the beginning of the season in the 4th quarter, are the opposing fans. It's not the New York Giant fans, and you can't blame the Giant fans for that. Why would a Giant fan even go to these games, right? Like, the Giants are not giving them anything to root for. This is purely on the organization. And the fans, they could fan it any way they want, dude. They could fan any way they want. And no one should ever look at them and say, you know what? you shouldn't leave for all that bullshit. No, dude, fan however you want, because the Giants are not giving you any reason to cheer whatsoever. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I couldn't anyway because of work, but I was offered free tickets to the game. I wouldn't have gone even if I didn't, even if I could have because of work. And I don't have any qualms. I don't apologize at all for that. They don't deserve my presence in that stadium at all. They don't deserve anyone's presence. I wish it was no fans went to the game and they sold it to all the opposing fans. They could really make a statement here about what this is and what we're watching and what we're dealing with. As it, as we look forward though, Nick, as something you just mentioned, you talk a lot about the future. The biggest danger by far is not, to me, we're becoming this team that keeps firing and hiring and firing and hiring, going through the cycle, which, like you said, is true. We don't want to get there. We're here. We don't have an option now. We're already there. The biggest danger to me is if you keep Joe Schoen. Let's put Daboll out of this for now, because I think Daboll's gone no matter what. Joe Schoen is the one who I think has a decent chance to be back, just because Mara doesn't want to fire a GM, which is not a good reason, but it could be the reason why. It's very dangerous to keep Joe Schoen, because if you keep Joe Schoen, he may pull a Gettleman and be pressured to make a pick for a need at quarterback to keep and save his job or to give him some extra time. If you put in a new general manager, he's a new slate, new regime, and may look at this differently and say, I don't need to draft a quarterback here. I could trade back, pick up a haul, or I could take Travis Hunter and do what I want there. And I have a long-term plan, and I have time, and I have the resources and the ability to do this. And that's a major danger for keeping Joe Schoen. Nice. And Joe Schoen has pulled and has shown to us that he is not just I am a great process guy. He's drafted for need before, and he drafted for need in 2022. And yes, they needed him to, but you don't ever really need to draft for need. You should be looking for the best players. And we have shit players, and we have no talent. We have no depth across this roster. And maybe part of that is because he drafted for need. And I don't trust him at all to bypass quarterback in this draft if there's not a quarterback that is on the board at their pick that they believe in.
And it's also just a fresh start. And I do feel like this is Groundhog Day, because we went through the same thing in 2022 when we hired Schoen and Brian Daboll, because it was, hey, there's 2 top 10 picks you have. Whatever general manager we hire, we have 2 top 10 picks. So that's a desirable job. Well, again, this is going to be, it's not desirable because the roster's not great, but you are giving this incoming general manager, if the Giants do decide to part ways with Joe Schoen, probably the first overall pick in the draft. And you could do a lot with that, as you just said. You want Justin Hunter, you could go that direction. You can get the quarterback, which I feel like a lot of Giant fans would welcome, or you could trade down. What the general manager can build and have the time to build this roster the way he wants to. And at this point, with how catastrophically bad these last 2 seasons have materialized, that could be like the best course of action. And I know it sucks because, I don't like restarting either, but I think it's fair to question if Joe Schoen is actually the guy we want to select, whoever he selects at first overall, with the way these picks haven't.
Well, it won't be first overall. Developed. The Raiders are going to have first overall, I think.
Second over, whatever it is, dude. I mean, I think it's a little bit too early to tell that right now.
It's too early to tell, but yeah.
You still got 3 games, and the
Max
Raiders,
Crosby just ruled out for the year, though. Now they're down to Ritter. It's looking bad there.
That's not a great look. That's not a great look. That's devastating, though. If the Giants finish this season with 2 wins and they somehow don't get the first overall, that is a Giant thing.
2 games they should have won for sure. The Raiders.
Yeah, look, man, it's tough. I can see ownership going that clean slate way, and that does kind of relieve a burden off the fan base as well. I don't know how much of that factors into this. Maybe none at all. Maybe some. I don't know. But it's something that
should factor some, Nick, because we've seen John Mara cave to fan pressure before.
With
I don't mean should as in I want it to. I mean it will as in should as in history. Past history proves that could again.
Yes, but the caving to fan pressure obviously comes along with John Mara and the organization being embarrassed, and those 2 things go hand in hand with each other. And right now, he's probably embarrassed, and that is coupled with the amount of pressure he's probably feeling from the media, podcasts like this, just the overall. You log into any ESPN or go to any like big podcast, right? National podcast that covers the NFL. It's like they talk about the Giants. And they're like, the Giants. They're completely right to say that, right? Like there's no reason to look at the Giants in a respectable manner right now because there's nothing to respect. And that is unfortunate.
The thing, though, that's interesting to me, because I am not, I said on the pod, I was 95% done with Daboll last pod. And someone's like, then why did you guys say Daboll found solutions in the film review? It's like, he can call a good game like he did last game, but that doesn't mean he's a good coach. Just that's one small factor of being a coach, and it's not enough. So, but with Schoen, why I'm now probably at 95% there too, is just the danger that I mentioned of, like I said, him being brought back and the pressure to take a quarterback to extend his own tenure. With that said, when this happened last time, Nick, I feel like they were further along in kind of being like, we know we want Daboll, we know we want Schoen, we got this thing kind of where we want it. I haven't heard anything on the GM or head coach front yet from the Giants, and we're late into this thing in the middle of December. I don't think the Giants have any kind of head start on this, so they would be way behind a lot of teams if they were to make the decision. So they're in bad shape from that standpoint too. Like, they don't have a beat on their next GM. They don't have a beat on their next head coach. This could get ugly for this franchise based on that.
Which is damn, dude. You're right. I mean, they would have to scramble and find that could not force, but that could
we
really,
shouldn't say that. We don't know for sure if they
exactly. But
they could be keeping it on.
If that is, it's conjecture, but if that is a reality, that could like lend a little bit more credence to keeping Joe Schoen at least.
Right.
Maybe not Brian Daboll, because the coaching, it's a little like coaches are not getting interviewed right now. Not a lot of people are getting interviewed at this moment because everybody is a part of a team right now. And these teams are all still playing. And a lot of the desirable candidates are going to be in the playoffs. So you don't even really get to interview them until maybe like championship week, if some of them want to squeak away, which we have seen in the past. But either way, dude, I did not expect us to be this pathetic at this point, man. We are 2 wins, 2-11. Or 2-12. I'm sorry, 2-12. That was our 12th loss. Yeah. So 2-12, 0-8 at home. All right. You want to get to some supers?
Yeah, let's get to some supers.
All righty. Billy Costigan Jr. Great listener. Thank you so much. Love the picture of the Rottweiler, and I love the reference to the Departed. I really don't know what to say anymore, guys. Just please, everyone hit the thumbs up. It ain't easy doing a podcast on this dumpster fire. It is not, because you know what? When you're a dumpster fire, it smells like shit. Because you're in a garbage. You're in a very large garbage receptacle, and then it's on fire, meaning it's hot, it's uncomfortable, I'm sweating. And that's what Dan and I do every time we go onto this podcast right now. So please hit the like button, leave a comment, and that would be lovely. Billy Costigan Jr., thank you.
Yeah, please, if you're watching right now, just stop everything you're doing and hit the like button. We need your help. Write any kind of comment. Just help us juice this up. But yeah, this has been the hardest it's ever been for me specifically to do a podcast on this team. It's been the hardest it's ever been for me to care and want to follow and track this team, if I'm just going to be very blunt about it. And I will. I can be open. I can be vulnerable about it. I can be honest. This team has lost me in a lot of ways that I never thought they'd lose me. I don't, and now I'll be rejuvenated by the offseason. I'll be rejuvenated by the draft. So, but we still have, like you said, Nick, 3 more games to go before that. That's the worst part about all this.
Yeah, it's stupid. Billy again says, we cannot afford to let Joe Schoen draft a quarterback to save his job. We can't trust his evaluation process at this point.
I agree. We cannot trust his evaluation process at this point, between the missed evaluations from a player standpoint, from personnel standpoint, between how it looked to me on Hard Knocks. I did not feel like this was a forward-looking for organization. I did not like his process at all, Joe Schoen, as far as what they showed us there. I used to like his process, didn't like it after Hard Knocks. So, for me, I can't disagree with you. I don't know what's gonna, who's there to save the Giants, but I don't think it's this guy.
Michael Aquilino. Ah, man, I'm bad with these. Thank you, Michael. He has a couple, so I'm going to read these. Daboll's a player's coach. That apparently doesn't motivate players. He doesn't yell and make players angry. He doesn't bench players for bad play. He just doesn't motivate well. Agree? I think he does yell, and he probably gets under some of the players' skin, especially when he is having those like mental breakdowns on the sideline, which he had another one after the 4th and 1. I don't know who he was yelling at. I actually didn't catch that. Maybe it's obvious.
I don't know
who exactly he was angry at that moment with the Tommy DeVito 4th and 1 quarterback sneak attempt. But yeah, I do think he is a player's coach, Michael. I don't like, it's hard for me to say, does he motivate players well, but I can judge by the final product that it doesn't appear like he does. But I think there are other issues with this roster. It does seem like with some of the comments that we saw earlier in the season, though, from players like Malik Neighbors, that the message probably is going in one ear and out the other. And that's never something you want from your head coach, onto especially rookie young players who are probably going to end up being leaders for this team.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you, Michael. I think this type of coach can work if the team is good, the infrastructure is good, the
Exactly.
talent, most importantly, is good. Um, but when it's like this, it's really tough. So I think I'd agree with you.
Michael also says, with poor motivation, players are better than they are showing. No?
Maybe. I mean, they
Yeah, I
don't have
mean,
much left. There's a lot of injuries.
and he also says Parcells was a motivator. Got the
Yeah,
best one. Yeah. Parcells was a G when it comes to being a
and they had
motivator.
a good team for Parcells.
Absolutely. We have Jason Benjamin. Jason says, I don't know why fans are going crazy. This is what tanking looks like, everyone. I say give Shane and Daboll another year. Mara said they are returning. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't think
believe they
anyone's
are
tanking,
actually tanking.
Jason.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
this
the
is just
thing. Like,
ineptitude.
it's not what tanking looks like. They're not actually tanking. No team is doing that. The Giants have said in the past they'll never do that. John Mara's confirmed it. Brian Daboll is not just tanking here. He's trying to save his job. You can see it by the fact that if he's tanking, he wouldn't take those timeouts at the end of the game.
Yeah, that's also like a process thing too. It's like, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. We have the timeout. We're gonna take the timeout, and it's like, dude, you're down like 35. What are you doing? Gianelli, thank you so much. Says haven't paid attention to anything Giants in almost a month, but here's some support. Oh man, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
We
he called
need
us
it. We need your help. We need your help.
Wonderful gentleman. I really appreciate that. Thank you. AFC 5253 says, press like, guys. These boys deserve it. Thank you so much. AFC 5253. I would like to think we deserve some likes. Talking about this dumpster fire. And then we have double 0031. Love that. Love that name. Bring back Jerry Reese. I don't know if I concur with that, but there's something.
I don't think it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
I actually I played cards with somebody who is good friends with Jerry Reese's son, and I tried my hardest to get him to talk to his friend to get Jerry Reese on the podcast, which I don't think is happening. I think from what I got, the gist of it was Jerry Reese wants nothing to do with football in general, talking about the Giants or dealing with anything Giants related. He is retired and done.
I cannot
with that lifestyle.
I cannot believe he's probably not that old, right?
He's
Jerry
not
Reese?
that old.
He's
No,
probably in
a
like
pretty
his
young
early
GM.
50s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's done. He's not coming back to football.
Hey man, he's got 2 rings as a general manager.
Why would he?
D-Kit, thank you so much. As always, bro, it seems to me that Shane's talent evaluation skills have always been a question mark, right down to his decision to pass on quarterback last year. Just my honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, well, how can we argue with it right now? There's look at this team and look at this roster. So there's no argument really from our end.
Ryan Schaefer, thank you so much. Says, a while back, you had a podcast that broke down what the quarterback traits were that you evaluated and how you ranked them. Would love to see the same process for general manager evaluation.
Not a bad idea. Thank you,
It's
Ryan.
not a bad idea. I would say it's a little bit more difficult to really kind of peel back the onion to get into like what a general manager does and doesn't do, because there's wide operation and it's like a kind of like an esoteric thing for like the public. We don't exactly know, but that is, you could be general with it though, I'd imagine. Right. And so, yeah, it's something we could probably kick around.
Yeah, we can do a general version, but yeah, it's not like, Nick and I can break down X's and O's and give you legit like football based reasons why we're looking for this trade in a quarterback. We can't do that with GM.
Very Gooster, thank you so much. Said, howdy, gents. Just here so I don't get fined. Ooh, that's a nice little shout out to Marshawn. Love that very much. Thank you so much. And then SPP Williams, thank you, SPP. Says, winning with Bills shows he's a good OC, but head coach is very different. Too many issues blowing up between DC, McKinney, Kafka, if he's a people person.
Yeah. It's hard to say he's a player's coach when he has all these blowups too. I totally get that point as well.
Now, I get the player coach, like what people are saying, that he is a player's coach, and I kind of see that too, just like how he operates practice. But yeah, I think if this, you have high T, a lot of people who are trying to have success, and there's a lot of personalities, and when you're the head coach, you got to really manage those personalities well. But sometimes they are going to clash. That doesn't mean he's not a player's coach, but it's just there's many variables to running a football team, and that's something that he's learning for the first time. This is his first time as a head coach. And then we have one more, Jason Benjamin. Thank you so much. Again, to me, they are tanking. They are quietly sitting all their main starters. Better days are ahead. NFL is a year-to-year league. Love the podcast. Thank you so much, Jason. I respectfully disagree. I think these players are a little banged up, and they don't want to risk going out there and getting injured. So they're just taking a seat, like the Bobby Okerekes and players of that nature. I'm not saying that they're not injured. I think they are. But I think if the Giants were in a playoff push, and this is something that's not specific to the Giants. We see this every year with every team who was like the Giants, who is just toiling away at the end of a season. If they were making a playoff push, these guys might grit it out and play. But right now, there's no reason to risk it because the Giants are so bad. But that's not tanking. That's just players making decisions that are best for them because there really is no reason to win football games as a team because the team is so freaking pathetic.
Right. And we're not even saying we know that for sure because these guys will just be so injured they can't play. I don't think it's what I think either Nick's right or what I just said is right. I don't think it's a situation where they're just not playing because they're trying to lose these games.
No, absolutely not. All right. Well, Dan, that's all of our supers.
Yeah. I think for my end, Nick, I don't know what else we have left to say about this game. We certainly have more left to say about this team at some point. We'll figure out some stuff to do on them.
We'll be back tomorrow, though, with the film review, the one collective podcast film review. See how much more exciting Tim Boyle is than Tommy DeVito. Oh, you guys must be just so pumped for that.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe some news will happen that can give us a spark or something like that. But we'll be here. We're trying. We're doing our best here. We'll have some mailbags. We'll have content like that. At some point, we'll look into maybe doing something that, like you guys mentioned, pros and cons for the GM, for the coach. I mean, I feel like it's been done already. I feel like we've even done it already just throughout these last 5 hours, but maybe one consolidated place could help. I don't know if people are interested in that. Please let us know. We want to know, like, we want anything we do at this point regarding this current team. We want to make sure that people are interested in before we do it because it takes a lot of time and we have to make sure that time is used wisely at this point. And, maybe we do turn the page a little early on college stuff if we can. I have to get my hands on some tape. I don't know what, I might go back to the same source, but I'm talking to some other guy who has some stuff. So we'll see, Nick. But yeah, it's a rough spot right now for Giants fans. Really can't remember anything like it. I really can't.
Yeah, no, right. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, on that somber note, for everybody, thank you again for listening. Thank you for helping support us. You know our show. If you've been here for a while and you're not new to it, you know the type of good content we can produce on a regular situation. And for us, regular is bad. It's just not this bad. So keep it locked and loaded. And like, we'll have good stuff coming. Not film. Film is done for the year. Like, we'll do our film reviews, but like, there's no film it's going to garner any interest at this point. But like, once we get to the college stuff, we'll have reviews from film standpoint, from a projection standpoint on all these prospects. We'll be talking free agency. We'll be talking potentially a new head coach, potentially a new GM search, like a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll be digging full heel into it and giving our takes and giving our analysis and giving our research out. Like, that's what's going to come. For now, we're talking about this team, and I know nobody cares about this team. I've lived it. I talk to my brother, I talk to my dad, I talk to my friends, and I talk to you guys a lot in the comments and then on Twitter. So it is what it is. Have a great rest of your Sunday if you can. Maybe you can win some fantasy matchups. Mine were basically blown up by facing Lamar Jackson and Brian Thomas Jr. annoyingly in multiple leagues.
Dude, the fact that you had to sit there, you host the Giants podcast, and he hosts a fantasy podcast as well, CBS Fantasy Sports, but you host a Giants podcast and you had to watch Lamar Jackson drop 5 on you. That's a trooper right there. That's a trooper.
Even more idiotic and annoying. His team was so shitty that he didn't have a good flex, so he put Bateman in the flex, which is just like disgusting. No. Yeah, I noticed it, and it's just I haven't looked.
Guys, we might need to watch out for Dan. we might need to send someone over there.
It's to just watch so bad, man. There's just nothing that's going to go right for us in football this year. But have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.